Hi, my name is Atyokti Pachori. Recently, I had traveled to Colombia for a week long trip with my family. My family consists of me, my husband, and our 3-year-old boy. During this trip, we had planned to go to Bogota and then Cartagena. We were having a pretty good week there until we were not. Because when we were in Cartagena on the evening of Thursday, that is April 30th, 2026, around 6:30 p.m., we were approached by a group of 6 or 7 20 to 25-year-old age-old boys or men who seemed to be selling the Chiva bus store at this very well lit public space, square kind of thing, which is located right between the clock tower and the Four Seasons Resort. So while we were waiting for our cab there in order to head back to the hotel for the night, this one guy came up to us and he kept my husband's attention trying to sell him the Chiva bus store, to which we had very politely denied. Yet he kept on insisting that we take it. During that time, there was the second guy who tried to approach my husband from the other side, and it just didn't seem right. So the only thing that kind of like seemed to be the right thing to do was yell in that moment. And by the time I was done yelling my husband's name, there was this third guy who was trying to distract him by also yelling, as to pointing as if something else has happened and it's not about my husband. And within that fraction of second, the guy basically snatched his chain and ran. And in that very next moment, the only thing that we both could think of doing was to run after this guy. So my husband followed him from one end and I decided to approach him from the other end, so that in case if my husband's not able to catch up to him, I catch up to this guy from the other side. During this chase, what happened was the guy who was actually trying to sell the Chiva bus store tried to intercept me, and I was running with our 3-year-old holding my hand, who, by the way, was a champ, because the way he ran, I'm still so proud of him for actually showing up in that moment the way he showed up. However, that's not something a 3-year-old should have to do while they are on a vacation, on a holiday, right? But it happened, right? And then this guy tried to intercept me, which basically resulted into my ankle twisting and me falling on my knee and losing my balance. And because I lost my balance, my kid was holding me. He also lost his and he fell. So what I did was I picked him up and continued to run, and on the way also picked up my husband's Carrera while I continued to run and catch this guy. And finally we were in front of the cops with my husband holding this guy and handing him over to the cops, and me trying to get the cops attention and go like, no, you have to catch this guy, because immediately in the very next split second he went to catch the second guy. And while I was trying to talk to this cop, this lady cop constantly tried to tell me that I'm in the fault here, that I do not know what I'm talking about, because the guy did not seem to have the chain. Of course, guy did not have the chain because he had swallowed the chain. Yes, he did swallow the chain, and it is there in the news. Now, when we are handing over these thieves, the amount of convincing it has taken from us to get the cops to take us seriously was just abysmal. They would not take our word until we told them that, hey, you do not seem to be listening to us, so we are going to get the respective embassies involved in this situation, because what has happened is not normal and we know this guy has the chain, right? And when they heard the word embassies, this is when they started taking our complaint seriously, and eventually the complaint was filed, the medical attention was provided to our son, the chain was basically taken out of this guy who had swallowed it. I don't even want to know how it was done, but it was done. And during this process, one police officer had tried to work with us using Google Translate, but Then again, our trust was really low. We were not sure how much information was being given, how much was not being given. A lot of processes seemed to go really very slow. So what I did is I reached out to uh, a classmate of mine who thankfully happened to be from Colombia, and he helped do the translation between me and the cops, between me and the doctors, between me and the hospital staff, and a whole lot of places, and try to get these guys to take us seriously and actually do something. And on the other hand, because I did not even have confidence with the doctors, what they were saying or suggesting, thankfully we have a friend's husband who's a pediatrician here in US, and he specializes in emergency trauma and NICU care. So I kept talking to him, I kept asking him like, hey, this is what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing, do you think what kind of decision should I make? Because I basically, a lot of things that were being said were just like not making sense in that moment, and I wanted him to be seen by a doctor that I trust, which is his doctors here in the US. But now, why am I putting this up? Because I genuinely feel in that moment we got lucky, not in one but multiple ways. One is that situation could have gone sideways, like it could have gone in any way where the output would not have been what it is currently, right? The second thing is, in that moment, my husband, who has a friend from Colombia, did not think of reaching out to her. However, I did think of reaching out randomly, and I didn't even know that I had a classmate from Colombia. Let me be very honest about this. I just shot in the dark and I got lucky. And today, yes, he's a friend, but like, in that moment, and I had not even spoken to him much during the course. So, yes, I did get lucky. And the third thing is, we happen to have someone in our uh, friends and family circle who happens to be a pediatrician. Not everyone would have that comfort or a benefit which we had. And in that case, it can be seeming to be like, you are lost, you don't know what's happening, and you may just not be able to respond and react as well. And a lot of these things are not just because of how they were, but also when this incident was captured by a certain news, like local news channel, which I found out later from the security guard of the children's hospital where I had taken my son. In that, when I read the comments, it seemed like this is something that has just grown recently a lot. And to just give you context why we were in Colombia is because my husband has backpacked through the entire South America almost a decade ago, and I wanted to explore South America. So we were like, hey, where could we go? And then we decided to go here, right? And only to find out that what it used to be, it's not today, which is it's not safe, right? And a lot of it is systematic, a lot of it is because of the apathy and zero concern from the police there. It's also because people have such low trust by their actions, and the mayor seems to be taking no action at all, right? So which is why I am here, because I don't want this to be one of those things that, okay, I talk about, but I actually want this to be something that helps the next mom who's going there with a family, or even any tourist who's showing up there, along with the people who already live there. And from the comment section, what I've understood is everybody is unhappy because these things are happening more and more and more. Because there's just one thing from a tourism perspective that I could comment on, and as someone who has extensively traveled both in her country and abroad, and plus I have a husband who has just like traveled a whole lot more than I have, there are a lot of salespeople compared to the number of tourists that are there in Cartagena. And also, the people who are in sales don't seem to understand that once a person has said very gracefully no to you in your local language, don't follow them up to half a mile, pretty much, right? Because that is what happened with us like literally the previous day, and we ignored it, and then next day we were just like expecting the same behavior, but just it just turned out to be a snatching incident, right? So what I have done is, at this point, I have created a Make Cartagena Safe crowdsourced portal where you can go and mark in case if any incident has happened with you, where I'm also going to put on our incident that happened with us. And you can basically put your case number if you want to. If you don't want to put your case number, you can still do that, and people can go and vote on it to make it seem like, whether it is a legit case or just like a non-legit case. That kind of verification layer is what I have added, but it's basically to bring it to the attention of Mr. Dubek Turbe, who is the mayor, so that he can take the rightful and lawful action, be it against the guys whom we have filed a complaint against, and as well as sorry, as well as take actions regarding how do they want to train the police force, and what are the other you know on ground initiatives they may want to deploy. And not just his attention, in fact I would also want to call to Indian embassy's attention, whom we had tried to reach out in order to inform them that, hey, listen, this happened, we took care of it, but maybe you may want to have a warning for other people from India who might be coming here. But then again, we called and we had heard like the call kept going to call forwarding. When we called the emergency number, there was just no response. Till now, we have not received a call back. And then when we called the regular line, somebody would just pick up the call and keep the phone, which was even more embarrassing, because one thing that we could rely on is, if the local authorities are not working with us, and if God forbid we had nobody along with us, the least we should have had is the embassy support in that situation to be able to translate or do whatever else, but we didn't have that. So this is to bring Mr. Mayor's and even embassy's attention on this case, so that the next person, if they are a target of such a case, they don't have suffer the same fate or worse that we did. So yes, make Cartagena safe. Thank you.